What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, the other day, I'm digging through the archives, looking through some old videos, and I come across a video of former President Richard Nixon's opinion on the former Iranian Shah, the last Shah, Reza Pahlavi. Now, it's really interesting. Richard Nixon is known to be a very, very bright man and really good foreign policy chops. And his opinion of the Shah was that the Shah, in his estimates, was not brutal enough, not strong enough on his opposition. And so there's really no consensus on this, but the narrative on what happened in Iran in 1979 with the overthrow of the Shah when he was out of the country seeking medical treatment for his illness is that Reza Pahlavi was a brutal dictator that crushed his people, and as a result, he was overthrown. If you dig into the facts as they are written, and start to construct a summary, you start to realize President Reza Pahlavi, and this is in line with what Nixon says, was a relatively progressive leader that was trying to lead his people into the 20th century. He made major investments into education, military infrastructure, the economic growth of the country exceeded dramatically under his rule, and he was relatively open to the various sects and ethnicities within the country. Now, in doing all this, as most leaders that try to upgrade their demographics, their education, etc., he would send students abroad. And as some of these students became educated, they would come back revolutionaries. At this time, you had communism and Marxism that was a major thorn in his side, which he repeatedly tried to deal with. But along with that, you had other various revolutionary fashions in any young country. In his case, you had the Marxists. You also had some obviously ethnic separatists, but you also had the conservative wing of the country. Don't forget, Iran is an Islamic country, and it has a conservative energy to it at the time. So instead of the Shah coming down hard on these revolutionaries group, Nixon kind of considered that the Shah left too much room for them. And what ended up happening is, as he's sending out these groups and accumulating dissidents within his own country and not crushing them with extreme prejudice, is that the conservatives from behind him, right, because he's a progressive trying to bring his people forward into modern times, the conservative behind him outflanked them, unified under Ayatollah Khomeini, and overthrew the Shah. But the Shah was going to be a major force in Iran's progression. This is very important because I see interviews with the Shah. And if you ever saw an interview with the Shah, you will see how calm, assured, intelligent, prudent this person is. He's a very rare leader on the world stage. And he really put me in the mind of a Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew is probably, you can say, a lot more pragmatic and have far better results. But just the serious tone and the vision he had for his people and moving them forward was so assured. Now, the questions, and what really threw me off in the interviews was a question they were asked the Shah. They would say, why are you building up your military? Are you going to put oil embargo? Like the questions the interviewers, because these are going to be Western interviewers, I'm watching these interviews in English, the question they were asking the Shah were questions almost out of a sense of, at minimum, respect, but it was really more of an energy of almost borderline fear, a great concern to the power that the Shah held in his hands, and at the speed at which he was developing his nation, which some consider was on its way to be top 5, if not at that time, top 5 most powerful countries in the world, of the top most powerful countries in the world. And when the Shah responded, he did so unflinchingly. It was a lot of strength of his answer and a lot of confidence in what he was doing. I continuously contest that probably on a square kilometer basis, there is no country in the world as well endowed as Iran. It's about roughly the size, roughly the size of Alaska, maybe a little bit smaller. But this country of this size, with coal, natural gas, oil, uranium, copper, aluminum, iron ore, zinc, manganese. I can go on and on and on and on. You do not find countries of this size in the world this well endowed. There are countries as well endowed, but they are massive continental countries. America, United States, Russia, Canada. These are massive countries. And then as you start to scale down, the countries become smaller and the resources become one-sided. So you'll have a massive country such as Argentina or India without a major national indigenous oil supply, right? They will have to import such things. So that was just an example. You find these rich, massive oil-rich countries such as Saudi Arabia, which doesn't have the industrial metals or access to the uranium like Iran has. So it was very well endowed. It was developing, and then bam, 1979 happened, and all of this going kaputs, right? Iran becomes extremely sanctioned in the world. Iran becomes a pariah in the world. The sanctions on Iran prevent them from fully engaging in the global economy. And this is where the development slows down. That lack of engagement in the global economy, to have free access to global markets because of the sanctions brought on from the backlash of the Iranian revolution, has hampered the country. And if you look at it, in hindsight, it has hurt the Iranian people the most. Because when I look at the West, who is supposedly the nemesis of Iran, I've seen way too much alignment, and not so much the ideological front, but as opposed to consequences. I'll give you an example. Iran, the whole Contra affair, remember the whole Iran-Contra affair? That was the U.S. selling weapons to this hostile Iranian regime. Iran continued to sell oil to Israel for years, 10 million barrels annually. Iran militancy in the region has called and allowed for a very muscular presence by Israel and the United States within the region. If Iran was not so hostile, do you think that Israel would have the leg to stand on in the region for its need to have such a strong defense industry? Or America's presence within the region? Iran has split the Arab world more or less along the lines of Shia-Sunni or North-South divide, but has continued to expand influence and divide the Arab world, where you look at its alliances in Syria, look at Hezbollah in Lebanon, and some would say and argue Hamas in Palestine. And now recently, they have the Houthis, which are kidnapping ships at the border of the Red Sea, at the gateway at the Red Sea, and they expanded their influence on the Arabian Peninsula right next to Saudi Arabia. Now, this has continuously divided the Arab world and allowed for more Western influence in the region as a peace broker, at minimum as a military deterrent in the region. The West has came in when Iran has been weak. $400 million airlift under the Obama administration went to Iran. Every once in a while, there's a a waiver here or there, whether that's going to be the oil waiver to certain oil poor countries that need oil from that trade with Iran, such as China or India or South Korea, such as were granted by the United States, or access, continuous access to the hostages that Iran have taken, and they get payoffs for those hostages. And recently, the extension of 120 days under the current U.S. administration for Iraq to continue to purchase electricity from Iran. Iran has continuously been too weak to offer its people a higher quality of life as they are economically stifled, suffering from inflation. They were one of the countries who suffered most during the COVID outbreaks. They continue to suffer under financial duress, but it is strong enough and is kept strong enough to continuously keep revolutionary forces outside of its spheres of power. So, in comic books, it's a term for this odd pairing that is happening here, and they call it an anti-hero. This would be like a Wolverine or a Magneto, seemingly do heroic things, even if the character themselves are seen as mischievous or not benevolent or have dark motives. But their results align with the hero. They are not a hero, but considered an anti-hero. And Iran to the West has seemingly been an anti-hero. It has kept what was seemingly, before 1979, a country for the very first time outside of the Western sphere to be a major competitor in the top echelons of power in the world, a major player in controlling the major resources in the world, until now being this pariah state, which have divided the region, brought in or justified the forces of outside powers within the region, while at the same time now allowing its population to fully engage the commercial opportunities of the world. So this is just something I saw as I looked into it. I'd love to hear your comments. Please leave some below. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I'm really interested in this way of thought because I can't figure out what else could it be. Iran is inadvertently helping the West achieve its ends within the region. And this has got to be one of the great contradictions in the world today. So leave a comment below. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.